Hello, and welcome to How Happiness Affects Productivity. I am so grateful that you have carved some time out to spend it with me, and I am so excited about this topic. We are going to discuss today what we think about happiness. So, what our culture says happiness is, and how you get happiness. We're going to talk about what science knows about happy people. We're going to talk about why this affects your business's bottom line. And then last, we're going to talk about how to elevate your baseline happiness in order to affect your productivity. And the really cool thing is that happiness is under your control. We're born with a baseline happiness, which accounts for about 40% of how happy we are. We have 10% that's affected by circumstances. And those of us who have jobs and live in North America, most of us are in the top of that 10%. So we've got 50% happiness there. Then we've got 50% less that is entirely under your control. It's yours to boost, it's yours to focus on, and that's what we're going to talk about. But first, I want to introduce myself quickly. My name is Tamara Lechner, and I have the coolest job in the world because I am a happiness expert. When I tell people that I'm a happiness expert, what they want to know is, what do you do all day and how did you get to be one? I wasn't always this super happy chick. When I started out in London, Ontario, I had a wonderful middle-class family, and one of the things we used to like to do was drive around looking at beautiful homes in what we considered the rich area of town. Every Sunday, I would see this one house, and I could imagine myself living there, and I started to plan my wedding, the dress I was going to wear, what the bridesmaids were going to wear, what my furniture would look like in this house, where I would travel. I had a really strong plan. The thing is, I thought all these things would make me happy if I had them. 15 years later, I actually was living in that house. I am a master at manifesting. I had worn that dress, I had the furniture, everything was exactly as I had pictured, but it didn't make me happy. Then my daughter, who was 2 at the time, was diagnosed with autism, and I ended up researching where I could go to help her have a successful life. I found this place in Connecticut called the Option Institute, where they had a program that would teach parents how to work with their children. So I signed up, and when I arrived, the place was very campy. People kind of looked hippy-dippy to me, but I was there for my daughter. So I phoned my mom and I said, I think I'm at a cult, but I'm going to stay because it's for Keely. Why did I think it was a cult? Because everybody looked happy. So I spent a couple of weeks learning everything I could about how to work with my daughter. But one of the tools they gave us was meditation and really being reflective about our own lives, introspective, going deep, learning what we wanted and why we did the things we did. So I loved this place. I completed all the trainings to work with my daughter, and then I started going back to take adult personal growth classes. I remember thinking, if this is a cult, I am ready to drink the purple Kool-Aid. Once I had remembered what it felt like to be happy, I was addicted. So my family moved to the West Coast. I'm now in Victoria, British Columbia, and I started training at the Chopra Center with Deepak Chopra. I love Deepak because he combines science and sage, which really matches my personality. I've also studied positive psychology through Berkeley and UPenn, and I realized that being happy was the most important thing in my life. It was the thing I was most proud of, and I've learned all the tools to teach it to you. So why at business do you want to be happy? People want to be happy because you are more attractive to other people when you are happy. This means your clients, this means people who work for you or who you work for. Happy people are just more effective. Conventional wisdom tells us that if you work hard, you'll become successful. And then once you're successful, you'll be happy. However, what science has shown that is actually the reverse is that happiness and optimism fuel performance and achievement. So success is actually a byproduct of happiness. What I know is that we're all being told that we're supposed to do what we love and the money will follow. But when you're an entrepreneur or you have a startup or you're just starting in the work world, or maybe you're heading to retirement, you're thinking about your rent and your bills and your payroll, and you wonder how happiness is going to fix all those problems. Well, I've got 4 facts that I would like to share for you about happiness. The first fact is the better your brain is at identifying positives, the greater your chance at success. What this means is that we have so many pieces of sensory input coming in every single day. In fact, it's 11 million pieces of stimulus. But our brain doesn't process these like a still picture where we can look over it slowly and decide what we're looking at when. We actually have to really quickly decide if we're focusing on the voice of the person talking to us, or if we're looking at their lips, if it's the perfume they're wearing, or the birds we can hear chirping in the background. So we have this really advanced system that decides what we're going to focus on. So the reality of our situation actually becomes our choice depending on what we focus on. So here's an example of this. If someone is in a car accident, many people would say, "Oh my God, that's horrible, it's terrible, are you okay?" A car accident might be considered bad. In my world, I don't really love my car. If I had a car accident and nobody was injured, I'd actually see it as a great opportunity to get a new vehicle because I'm not happy with the one I have right now. Neither one of those scenarios is the right one or the wrong one. They're just different ways to look at the same piece of input, which is that car accident. So the better your brain is trained to use its energy to focus on the positive, the greater your chance at success. So scientifically, how this works, all of the neural pathways that carry information in your brain are like little highways, and I also think of them like pieces of wire. So when we put that thick plastic coating on wire to protect it, that's like the myelin sheath of the brain. This myelin sheath, the thicker you have a myelin sheath, the faster information travels in your brain. So if we start to practice looking at things in a positive way and looking for happy things, we actually get better at doing it, and the information travels more quickly down this myelin sheath. Once you strengthen those neural pathways, you can discover positive things really quickly. And this creates a really great mindset for optimism and creativity, which are 2 huge factors in how successful you're going to be in your business. So that's our first fact. The better your brain is at identifying positive, the greater your chance of success. The second fact is that optimism must be rational. And what I mean by that is you want to be realistic. If you have a really bad product that you're trying to sell, or if you're trying to, you're trying to get a job as a doctor, but you don't have a medical degree, that's unrealistic. No amount of positivity is going to change the fact that you don't have that degree which you need to get the job. However, if you have all of the things in place that you need, then optimism is the tipping point that pushes you over to success. The problem is, for 80% of humans, optimism isn't rational. What this means is that no matter how much cold calling and following up and meeting and greeting and networking you do, you don't have the product that people want simply because you're not being rational. So let me explain what this means. If I ask 100 people in a room if they think they are in the top half of the population as far as their social skills, are you one of the best social people in this room? In a room of 100 people, 80 of those people will think that they are in the top half. So 30% of these people are overestimating their abilities and have confidence where they should not have confidence. Knowing that this is the case. This is the way our brains work. You can set yourself up to be more rational. And this doesn't mean to downplay what you can or cannot do. It just means you have to recognize that people think they are going to be more successful. They think they're going to make more sales than they actually are. The other side of this is you don't want to see a failure as meaning that you are a failure. When you think of people who have been really successful in their lives, they actually see failure as a logical step on the way to success. So if you hear like Michael Jordan, who didn't make his high school basketball team, a lot of people at that point would not have continued to play basketball. Thomas Edison tried unsuccessfully 10,000 times before he was successful with the light bulb. So again, this is an attitude here. If these people had thought of their failures as the end, they would not have persevered and moved along. So Maya Angelou has a great quote about this that I love. She says, "You may encounter many defeats, but you must not be defeated." And this mindset is huge as far as success in your career. And success is directly related to how productive you're going to feel and how good you're going to feel about what you're doing every day. Third fact, it's often the perception of stress and not the actual stress that derails you. This is so common in this day and age. It's a vicious circle when you are feeling stressed and then you actually begin to have stress about feeling stressed. And eventually your stress is so pervasive that you can't even remember the source of your stress. At the Chopra Center, the definition we use when we're talking about stress is when something comes between you and something you want. So this can be as simple as traffic. You want to get to work on time and you're in traffic. It can be something big like a diagnosis of a disease or a death of a loved one. Or it can be just something off in your body that causes you stress. Maybe you've got a stomach ache. Anything that keeps you from living your optimal life and getting what you want in each day. When we have stress, our body starts this fight or flight. Historically, fight or flight was really useful for us. When we were running from dinosaurs, it set us up so that we could run fast. We would remove all of the digestive process and the immune so that we could have thicker blood. And if we got bit by this dinosaur, we wouldn't bleed out. So it was really useful. However, the stresses we have in this day and age are not really served by our fight or flight system being activated. When this system is activated, the chemicals that are released actually impair our ability to make good decisions. So when fight or flight happens, we have an increase of blood pressure. We have stress hormones that are released. We get more insulin through our body. We have weakened immunity, our blood clots, and we decrease circulation to our digestive tract. So I'm sure you can all remember a time when your stomach kind of clenches and just feels really gross suddenly. That is your fight or flight. And different people feel it in different places in your body. I always encourage clients to really think about when you're stressed, where do you feel it? For some people, you tension in your mouth. For some people, it's your gut. Wherever you feel that, you want to recognize that this is my body's way of telling me that something is off, that something has come between me and something I want. And again, the problem with living in a stressed state is those chemicals impair your judgment. Long-term exposure to fight or flight actually leads to horrible things like heart disease, anxiety, insomnia, obesity, infections, cancer, heart attack, stroke, and digestive disturbances. These are not things we want in our life. So how do we break this circle? Well, increasing your positivity, increasing happiness, being more mindful and meditating are all ways that we can reduce this stress, and that will help you to become more productive. And I'm going to go over at the end of this talk 7 little steps that will help you to beat stress. The fourth fact about happiness, and I mentioned this briefly at the beginning, is that we all have a base level of happiness, but it can be elevated. So some of us start really, really happy. Some of us start maybe 50% happy, and some of us start with kind of a negative mindset and we're not very happy at all. It's our homeostasis. The thing is, wherever your homeostasis is, we like to believe as a society that if we won the lottery or something super wonderful happened to us, it would change our level of happiness. What studies have shown is that actually winning the lottery initially gives you a huge boost of happiness, but really quickly you come back to your set base level. Same thing if your spouse dies. So you would like to think that winning the lottery and having your spouse die are two really different things in the terms of your happiness. However, in both scenarios, we move away from your baseline set point, your homeostasis, and then very quickly we adapt and come back to it. So this adaptation that humans have when something makes us really happy and then very quickly we go back to our regular base is really useful for you as a business person. You may have set up some great rewards inside your business structure with your employees where every Friday you get a free lunch, or once a month somebody is employee of the month. And these things are great little boosts for happiness, but people adapt back really, really quickly. So unless you're changing up how you're celebrating your workers, how you're celebrating your clients, the things you're doing that are the extras, the humans in your life are going to adapt and they're not going to notice these as great anymore. So you need to keep pointing out what you do and why you do it and how that sets you above the competition in order for people to continue noticing. Unfortunately, humans adapt. So the cool thing is, happiness can be a practice, like a yoga practice, like a workout practice. It's something that you can increase, elevate, and maintain just by using a few little tricks. So I have 7 of them, and I like to practice them one each day of the week until they're kind of stuck in my mind, and then I switch them up. The first one, number 1, is gratitude. I choose gratitude first because, not really because it's the most important, but because it's the simplest. We've all been thankful for something at some point in our life. So starting with this simple tool, we can lay the foundation for a more positive mindset. Gratitude is defined as the feeling of reverence for things that are given, and it allows us to celebrate the present moment. We're going to talk later about being present, but gratitude keeps us in the now. So we're not thinking about the what ifs. We're not thinking about the past. We're really being grateful. It also blocks negative emotions like anger and regret, and it cultivates a higher sense of self-worth. It makes you more resistant to stressors and more resilient when you have stress in your life. Tony Robbins says, when you are grateful, fear disappears and abundance appears. Science shows that people who have a grateful mindset benefit physically, socially, and psychologically. So really practicing gratitude, thanking people, your workers, your friends, your family, in a really sincere way, elevates your baseline level of happiness. Second step is connection. Happy people feel connected. This might be connected in a bigger sense where you feel connected to everyone and everything around you. Or this can also mean that you have a really big group of supportive friends. Feeling accepted by others and feeling that someone has your back, trusting other people, and then trusting yourself are all part of this connection. So you can think of connection as self-trust and social connection. The true self is the part of us that doesn't change when circumstances do. So getting in touch with that, trusting it, and Showing that authentically to the people in your life is a huge way to boost happiness. How do we turn up the volume on our inner voice so that we can trust it? Being present, being open. We really just need to work on this again and again, knowing that when we are resilient in this way, it makes us people who others gravitate to. So again, that's connection with yourself, connection with others. Our next step is being authentic. So it takes a ton of emotional effort to pretend to be different than you actually are, putting on a face for somebody else, behaving as though your parents would want you to, your peers, maybe your church, your boss even. Being authentic is easy. Being different than you are, pretending, is hard. Whatever the reason that you're pretending to be someone you're not, the toll is huge. It's hard on your physical body, it's hard on your emotional body, and it zaps your happiness. So a little reminder I like to give everyone is don't trade your authenticity for approval. Being really, truly authentic in whatever you do, people are going to buy more because they're going to hear it in your voice. People are going to hire you because they recognize that you are speaking from a really comfortable place, and this makes people want to be around you. So authenticity, really important. Next step is purpose. Purpose is having a sense of being a part of something bigger. And this can be in the altruistic sense that you've chosen a job that is going to make the world a better place. Or it can just be that I want to touch everybody that comes into my life in a way that is meaningful. The universe is always sending you messages that tell you if you're in alignment with your purpose or not. When you're living truly connected to your purpose, events in your life seem to conspire to help you move forward with whatever you're doing. So if you're noticing that things are really, really going well, that you just seem to be in that flow, that when you need an answer, it's there. When you need a person to help you, they're there. You're probably attached to your sense of purpose. If you're having a hard time figuring out what your purpose is, Bishop Jakes has a great little quote that I love. He says, if you can't figure out your purpose, figure out your passion. Your passion will lead you right into your purpose. So aligning what you do every day at work with your purpose is really important. It helps you to use your core values, these core values that are part of who you are at the very essence of your being, define you. And when you use things that help your core values, it increases your happiness. And to explain this a little better, I have done core values tests for every member of my family, myself, my husband, and my children. And the reason I did this is once you identify what your core values are, and your values can be things like humor and honesty, bravery. So there's so many different values. They're kind of like the virtues of your life. One value that everyone in my family shares is that we all really enjoy entertaining. We all boost our happiness when we are surrounded by friends having good times, which sounds like a no-brainer, except that that's not true for everybody. Definitely, if you're a more introverted person and you value your alone time, then socializing with a big group of people may not fill your cup. But when I've identified that everybody in my family shares this trait, and the trait is actually called zest, that we can fill our cups by experiencing zest and entertaining people, which is fun. And it helps to fill up our lives, fill up our souls, fill up our hearts. So ultimately, it is helping us to elevate and maintain a really great sense of happiness. So when you're trying to figure out what your purpose is, what I suggest people do is a little bit of detective work about what you're good at, what makes you feel really good, what you've done in the past that you're really proud of, and who you look up to in life, and you can start to figure out that there's a pattern. So, for example, Zest is one of mine, and one of the people that I look up to in life is Ferris Bueller, because I love how he spent his day off. And that would make sense with someone who loves zest and enthusiasm. So again, figuring out your purpose, a huge step towards happiness and productivity. The next one is letting go, or sometimes I call this release. And this tool is about letting go of all the things that are holding you back. Things like anger, things like fear, and things like attachment to outcome. There's a really tricky balance of wanting and getting, giving and receiving. It's like the ebb and flow of the tides. We are free to want abundantly, but as soon as we attach our happiness to having the thing we want, we constrict that ebb and flow, and then we're limiting our ability to get that thing that we want because we are so constricted that we're not open to embrace the things that we're asking for. So learning how to let go of fear, let go of expectations, let go of anger, let go of your inability to trust yourself, all of these things will help you to become happier. Attachment happens when the actor forgets he's acting. And I love this quote because it is so true. When we get so involved in our lives emotionally and we're no longer able to step back, we lose our focus. We lose that ability to see the big picture. Next step, being playful. This doesn't sound like something we get very much opportunity to do at work, but it is so important. It means it's time to put the fun back into your day. Even if it's on your break, if you can get outside, spend time in nature, have a silly moment, have a joke inside of whatever your pitch is, whatever you're presenting. Surround yourself with other people who are filled with joy, who are talking about how excited they are about what they're doing at work, not the people who are the Debbie Downers, not the people who see the glass as half empty. What you focus on gets bigger. And if you hang out with people who are not seeing the positive things in your work environment, it's contagious. And eventually you're going to have a hard time finding the good things at work. You want to spend more time talking about your dreams and plans, and you want to spend absolutely no time gossiping and complaining. Complaining is really different than solving a problem. So if there's something going wrong, and sometimes you will have a problem, you will have something you need to fix, you want to go back to that growth mindset, which is seeing it as an opportunity to make your service, your business, your product better. So again, we are not spiraling downward into that negative. We are lifting one another up and working as a team to do this. And if you're a leader, this is probably the most important thing you do in your job. You'll feel better. You're going to smile more. And actually, there's some great scientific studies that prove that just smiling more actually increases that baseline of happiness. So something I always advise people, if you're having a particularly crappy day, is paste on a smile anyway. Eventually, it becomes real. Your body doesn't always know the difference. So these were 7 tools that you can use to increase your happiness. Why do you want to use them? Because people want to buy from you. They want to hire you. They want to be part of your team if you have that awesome energy of a happy person. So again, I encourage you to create practice where you can focus on your happiness for 5 minutes a day, for 10 minutes a day, for half an hour a day, whatever you've got. Make it a priority because it's going to change the way your work feels. And when that changes, everything in your work life will also change. So thank you so much. This was a lot. There was a lot that came up in our discussion today. I'm going to quickly see if we have any questions. So I'm going to enable questions now if anybody has them. And while I'm waiting to see if anybody has questions, I'm going to remind you what we talked about. We talked about what we think about happiness. We talked about what science tells us about happiness. We talked about why this affects our business's bottom line. And then we talked about those 7 tools to elevate our baseline happiness. Okay, and I see I have one question, and it is about the tool. When I said to surround yourself with happy people. Okay, so I think what you're asking is, when you're at work, you don't always have choice of who you're surrounded by on your team. So if you're surrounded by a group of people who are unhappy, what do you do? Okay, so what you want to do is find people outside your work who can fill that cup. They're not always going to be at work. And one thing I like to remind people is, if you're in a really yucky place at work, if you're going through hell, keep going. Eventually, you're going to come out the other side. If you allow yourself to get sucked down into that downward spiral, you are just part of the problem instead of part of the solution. So even if it's finding people outside your team at work, you've got to find someone who will help you lift your spirits. I have another question, and this one is, can I list those 7 steps again? I certainly can, and I'm also going to mention that these 7 steps are all over my website, which is ahamomentsforyou.com. That's www.ahamoments4u.com. But the steps are gratitude, connection, authenticity, purpose, letting go, being playful, and the last one is being mindful. And you know what? I do not think that I clarified that step. Being mindful is just finding some time to go inward every day. So whether it's a mindful meditation, whether it's a walk outside at lunch, that step allows you to connect with the inner voice, the authentic self, the purpose. And spending time, it's all over the news right now, mindfulness. Every place you go, you're hearing mindfulness should be in schools. Mindfulness should also be in the workplace, because when you spend time getting to know yourself, listening to your inner voice, it speaks more loudly. It's another practice. So thank you for that question. I've really enjoyed this time today. I am aware that this was a half-hour webinar and we've gone a couple of minutes over, but I've hoped that you've enjoyed all of these little hints I've given you. And please, if you want a little boost of happiness, feel free to sign up. I have a happy thought that will come every morning to your email. It is never going to ask you to sign up for something. It's not a way for me to advertise. I just love to send them out. So if you go on my website to the Who, What, Why page, there's a spot you can sign up for a daily happy thought, and it starts your morning off in a really great way with a little boost of happiness. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you can find your happy thought. I hope you bring it to work with you, and I know if you do, it'll affect your productivity in a great way. Thank you.